He sighed. I'm tired, Kay. Feels like every time I try to stay invisible, life finds a way to put a spotlight on me. She sat beside him, hand on his knee. You ain't invisible, Marcus. You just been made to feel that way. Her words hit deep. Meanwhile, Kelly started getting hate mail. Some called her racist. Others called her race traitor. A few messages were downright vile. She couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed the stop, the look in Marcus's eyes, the sound of her own voice, that weird, nervous attempt at humor. Why did I even say that? She thought. Why couldn't I just hand him the ticket and move on like every other day? Then came the press conference. The department's PR team made her read a prepared statement. I regret my words and understand how they may have been perceived as unprofessional. I did not intend to offend or disrespect Mr. Johnson or any community. The clip of her apology only made things worse. People froze the video, zooming in on her eyes, analyzing every blink. She doesn't mean it. She's only sorry she got caught. Typical cop apology. For the first time, Kelly realized what Marcus must have felt, being judged by strangers who didn't know your story. A week later, a local community group invited Marcus to speak at a panel on race, policing, and viral media. He didn't want to go. I ain't no activist, he told Kendra. I'm just a dude who wanted to get to work. But she said something that stuck. You don't have to be an activist to tell your truth. So he went. Under the fluorescent lights of a community center, surrounded by reporters, students, and church leaders, Marcus spoke. I don't hate that officer. I don't even think she meant harm, he began. But y'all gotta understand, when you've lived your whole life being careful around the law, one small thing can feel big. The problem ain't just that moment. It's what that moment represents. The room went silent. Cameras clicked. For once, Marcus didn't feel like he was being watched. He felt like he was being heard. Afterward, as he was leaving, a familiar voice called out, Marcus? He turned. It was Officer Monroe. She looked different. Plain clothes, no uniform, no shades. Just human. I didn't expect to see you here, he said quietly. I almost didn't come, she admitted, but I needed to hear this. And maybe apologize face to face, Marcus nodded. Took guts to show up. They didn't shake hands, not yet. But the tension that had defined their last meeting shifted into something else. Understanding. Still, the world outside didn't care about understanding. The media wanted conflict, not closure. Social media accounts twisted the meeting into clickbait headlines. Officer faces her victim. Flirty cop confronts black man at panel. Both of them started getting calls from national outlets, talk shows, podcasts. We'd love to have you on to talk about racial healing, one producer said. Marcus turned them all down. Y'all not looking for healing, he said. Y'all looking for ratings. But as much as he tried to move on, the system had other plans. His boss never called him back. Job gone, bills stacked up. And one night, when he applied for a new delivery gig, the HR rep looked at his name, typed something into Google, and then said, Oh, you're that guy. That look said everything. It wasn't just about one video anymore, and it was about how the world labels you and refuses to let you out of the box. Meanwhile, Kelly got reassigned to a low-visibility role, community outreach. It was meant to rebuild trust, but it felt like exile. Still, she tried to make something of it. She started volunteering at youth centers, talking to teens about safe interactions with police. But every time she stood there in uniform, she could feel the eyes on her. Suspicion, resentment, anger. One kid, maybe 15, said to her, Miss, you one of the good ones or one of the fake ones? Kelly didn't know how to answer. That night, she wrote in her journal, If silence protects comfort, then maybe speaking up means losing it. And somewhere in the distance, through all the noise, all the chaos, both Marcus and Kelly were walking separate roads that were about to collide again. Because one night, an unarmed teen in the same district was stopped, and the outcome wasn't viral, it was fatal. The public erupted. Protests lit the city again, and this time both Marcus and Kelly would have to decide, stay silent, or step into the storm. The next chapter of their lives was waiting, and it wouldn't be kind. Atlanta felt heavy that week, like the air itself carried grief. Streets filled with chants, signs, and people who'd had enough. Another young black teen was gone, shot during what was supposed to be a routine stop. Marcus watched the news with his arms crossed, his jaw tight. Same story, different name. 17 years old, no weapon. Feared for his life. He turned off the TV before they could start showing the body cam footage. Layla was in the next room, coloring, humming to herself. He didn't want that sound in her ears, not yet. Kendra sat beside him on the couch. You okay? Marcus exhaled long and slow. Nah, Kay, I'm not. I've been that kid before. Only difference between me and him was luck. She looked at him, eyes full of worry. You think that cop, the one from your video, you think she's part of all that too? He shook his head. I don't know, baby. But the system she's in sure is. Over on the other side of the city, Officer Kelly Monroe was glued to that same news broadcast, but this time, it wasn't through a screen. The precinct was in chaos. The officer involved in the shooting had been one of her colleagues, a guy she'd trained with. Rookie, eager to impress. When the footage dropped, everything changed. The kid had his hands up. The officer fired anyway. The department scrambled to control the narrative. Press releases, statements. Investigation underway. But behind closed doors, it was damage control, not justice. Kelly saw it firsthand. Files went missing. Reports rewritten. One sergeant even said, "We can't let this one blow up like the last time." Something inside her broke. That night, she called Marcus. She hadn't spoken to him since the panel. His number stayed in her phone. Maybe out of guilt, maybe out of unfinished business. He picked up on the third ring. Marcus Johnson. It's Kelly, she said, voice low. Officer Monroe, he went quiet. Didn't expect to hear from you again. I know. I wouldn't be calling if it wasn't important. There's something happening in the department. Something you need to know. They met at a diner off Glenwood Avenue, the kind of late-night spot that smelled like burnt coffee and fried food. Kelly wore a hoodie and baseball cap. Marcus sat with his back to the wall, still cautious. You look different, he said, eyeing her. I feel different, she replied. She slid a small flash drive across the table. That's internal footage from the precinct. Body cam clips they didn't release. It proves the kid was shot after surrendering. They're covering it up, Marcus. He frowned, pushing it back toward her. Why are you giving this to me? Because I don't trust anyone in uniform anymore, she said quietly. And because you're the only one who knows how it feels on the other side. Marcus stared at the drive, then at her. He could see the exhaustion in her face and the weight of a woman trying to do right inside a system built wrong. Kelly, he said, lowering his voice, if you go public with this, they'll eat you alive. She gave a small, bitter laugh. They already are. Might as well go out doing something that matters. When the footage leaked 2 days later, Atlanta went from angry to explosive. Protests grew into marches, marches into movements. Marcus stood among the crowds, not as the guy from the viral video anymore, but as a man demanding truth. Chants echoed through the streets. No justice, no peace. Cars honked in rhythm, church leaders locked arms with teens, and local news captured the biggest turnout the city had seen in years. Meanwhile, Kelly was suspended indefinitely. Internal Affairs opened an investigation, not into the shooting but into her violation of confidentiality. Her captain called her a traitor. Her fellow officers stopped returning her calls. But for the first time in years, her conscience was clear. At home, Marcus and Kendra sat together watching the coverage. That woman's got guts, Kendra said softly. She risked her whole life for a truth that wasn't even hers, Marcus replied. I can respect that. He opened his laptop and started typing. Not for the news, not for clout, just his own piece. A post that read, when silence becomes normal, truth becomes rebellion. We can't heal what we hide. The post went viral within hours. But this time it wasn't about humor or scandal. It was about change. Community groups reached out. Churches invited him to speak. Colleges wanted him to share his experience, and slowly something started shifting. The protests turned into discussions. The anger turned into action. Still, not everyone was ready for that kind of change. Kelly's apartment got vandalized. Spray paint across her door. Blue traitor. She filed a report, but the responding officers smirked and said, guess you know how it feels now. She packed her things that night and left Atlanta for a while, heading to stay with her mom in Savannah. Before she left, she wrote Marcus one final message. You said once the world loves to twist stories. Maybe now it's time we start writing our own. He saved that message. Didn't reply right away. Didn't need to. Weeks later, as the city calmed and the protests faded into quieter conversations, Marcus walked Layla to school. She held his hand tight, looking up at him. "Daddy, are you famous again?" He smiled softly. "Nah, baby. Just trying to do the right thing." She thought for a moment, then said, "Then that's better than famous." It started like any ordinary Tuesday morning in downtown Atlanta, sun blazing, traffic crawling, horns honking. But for Marcus Johnson, a 34-year-old black delivery driver running late for work, it was about to be the kind of morning that changes your life forever. Blue and red lights flashed in his rearview mirror. "Man, not today," he muttered, pulling over near Peachtree Street. The police cruiser rolled up behind him and out stepped Officer Kelly Monroe, white, sharp-featured, and known around the precinct for being by the book. Clipboard in hand, shades on, she walked up to his window like she'd done it 1,000 times. "License and registration," she said, voice firm. Marcus handed them over, trying to stay calm. He'd been stopped before, too many times, and he knew how fast a simple traffic stop could go wrong. But this time, something felt different. The tension was heavy, the silence thick. Then, as Officer Monroe leaned in to write the ticket, she paused, eyes locking on his wedding ring. And that's when she said something no one expected. Something that made the whole internet explode within hours. What happened next? Nobody saw it coming. Marcus Johnson wasn't the kind of guy who caused trouble. Everyone in his neighborhood knew him. The friendly face behind the wheel of his dusty white delivery van with the crooked bumper sticker that said, "Keep going. God ain't done yet." Born and raised in Atlanta's South Side, Marcus had grown up in a world that taught him two things early on: hustle hard and stay cautious, especially when blue lights flash behind you. He lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment with his wife Kendra and their 6-year-old daughter, Layla. The place wasn't fancy, but it had love. You could smell Kendra's cornbread from the hallway every Sunday, and hear Layla's laughter bounce off the walls as she danced to old-school R&B. Those moments were everything to Marcus, a reminder that no matter how rough things got, he was building something worth protecting. Marcus worked for a local logistics company, doing deliveries across the city. The pay wasn't great, but it kept food on the table. Every morning, he'd leave before sunrise with a thermos of coffee and a quiet prayer that today would be just another safe, uneventful day. But Atlanta traffic didn't care about prayers. That morning, he was running late. Again. A fender bender had slowed everything to a crawl on I-75, and his dispatcher was already blowing up his phone. Marcus was weaving through lanes, tapping his steering wheel, mumbling under his breath, "And come on, man. I got bills to pay." Then, as he turned onto Peachtree, he saw the flashing lights in his rearview mirror. Damn. His stomach dropped. It wasn't the first time he'd been pulled over, but it never got easier. Every time the same fear crept in. Will this be the time things go bad? He signaled, pulled over carefully, hands visible on the steering wheel. He did everything by the book. Years of experience had taught him that being polite could mean the difference between going home or becoming a headline. The cop's door opened, and out stepped Officer Kelly Monroe. Mid-30s, tall blonde hair tucked neatly under her cap, mirrored sunglasses that made it impossible to read her face. She was the kind of officer who always seemed to carry a storm behind her calm. "Morning, ma'am," Marcus greeted, voice tight but steady. "License and registration," she said flatly, not returning the greeting. Marcus handed them over without hesitation. She looked them over, then glanced at him, really looked. "You know why I pulled you over?" "No, ma'am," he said. "I wasn't speeding. You rolled through that stop sign back there," Marcus frowned. I stopped, but caught himself. No point arguing. Officer Monroe scribbled something on her notepad. The traffic roared by. The whole world felt like it had shrunk down to this one small strip of asphalt. Just him, her, and a weight in the air that neither could name. Inside his head, Marcus replayed every story he'd ever heard. Every name. Every video. He thought of his daughter. "Stay calm, man. Just stay calm." Officer Monroe studied him a little too long before finally turning toward her cruiser. She was halfway there when her radio buzzed. Dispatch checking in. As she spoke into it, Marcus caught snippets of her tone. Professional, clipped. But there was something else under it. Tiredness, maybe. Frustration? He didn't know it yet, but Kelly Monroe had her own mess to deal with. A divorce, a mother in hospice, and a precinct that judged her for being too soft on civilians after she'd once refused to escalate a stop that almost cost her promotion. She carried all that weight with her every shift, and when she walked back to Marcus's window, something shifted. She noticed his wedding band. Then the faded photo of Kendra and Layla taped to his dashboard, Kendra smiling wide, Layla mid-laugh, missing one front tooth. For a second, her face softened. Then she sighed. "You got a family?" she asked. "Yes, ma'am. Wife and daughter," Marcus replied cautiously. She nodded, then looked back down at the ticket pad. Her pen hovered. Marcus wasn't sure what she was thinking, but his mind was racing. "Please, just give me the ticket and let me go." But instead she said quietly, "You know, if you weren't married, I'd probably give you my number." Marcus froze. At first he thought he misheard, but she said it again, half smirking, almost like she regretted it the second it left her mouth. The tension that had been thick with fear suddenly twisted into something confusing, a mix of disbelief, awkwardness, and a spark of something human. Marcus chuckled nervously, unsure if it was a joke or a trap. I appreciate that, officer. But my wife would probably have me locked up for that one." Kelly let out a short laugh, low and genuine. For a fleeting moment, it wasn't about race or authority or fear. It was just two tired people crossing paths in a world that kept testing them both. Still, as Marcus pulled away minutes later with a warning instead of a ticket, the unease lingered. Something told him this wasn't over. By that evening, his dashcam footage, uploaded automatically to his cloud, would find its way online. And by the next morning, the whole internet would be talking about the flirty cop and the black man she almost fined. Some called it funny. Some called it inappropriate. But others saw something deeper, an uncomfortable mirror of how race, power, and perception collide in America every single day. And for Marcus and Officer Monroe, that viral moment would change everything. The clip went live on Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, Marcus's phone was blowing up like fireworks on the 4th of July. At first, he thought it was just his friends joking. "Yo, bro, you famous," one text read. "That cop Loki shot her shot at you," another said, followed by laughing emojis. But when he opened his notifications and saw hundreds of comments, thousands, he realized this thing had gone way beyond a private joke. Someone had ripped the video from his dashcam account and posted it to TikTok with the caption, "Cop flirts with black man instead of giving him a ticket. Atlanta, Wild America." By noon, it had hit 500,000 views. At first, the internet treated it like a meme. Some laughed, calling it harmless. Others called it reverse racism. A few even said the officer was just being friendly. But then the serious comments started rolling in. "You notice how calm he stayed? He didn't even laugh till she did. That's years of conditioning. If the situation was flipped, would a black cop joking with a white woman go viral in the same way? This ain't cute. This is power imbalance, plain and simple." Marcus wasn't ready for the spotlight, none or the heat that came with it. Reporters started showing up outside his apartment building. His manager at the delivery company called him in and said, "We can't have all this media attention on one of our drivers. Take a few days off, Marcus. Let it die down." He felt blindsided. "So I'm being punished for something I didn't even do wrong?" His boss sighed. "Ain't about wrong or right. It's about optics." That word, optics, and hit him like a slap. He'd heard it before. It always meant the same thing. You're black, and the company doesn't want to deal with it. Meanwhile, Officer Monroe wasn't having an easier time. Inside her precinct, whispers followed her down the hall. "Hey, Kelly, you giving out numbers now instead of tickets?" One officer joked, loud enough for everyone to hear. She tried to laugh it off, but it stung. Her captain called her in later that afternoon. "You realize this department is under a microscope, right? You can't be out here flirting on duty, especially with a black driver. You're making us look bad." "I didn't flirt," she said, trying to explain. It came out wrong. I was trying to ease the tension." "Yeah, well, it didn't come out right either. You're on desk duty till this blows over." Kelly sat there, numb. Desk duty. Her badge still shined, but it suddenly felt heavy. That night, both of them sat in their separate homes. Marcus in his small living room, watching his daughter color on the floor. Kelly in her dim apartment, wine glass in hand, news channel replaying her own face. and both wondered how something so small had spiraled so fast. Marcus scrolled through comments. For every message of support, there were 10 calling him names, mocking his calmness, or questioning his reaction. Bet he loved the attention. He just milking this for clout. Why didn't he just say thank you and move on? He closed the app, shaking his head. People really don't get it. It wasn't about the flirt. It was about how quick the world was to twist it, to turn a moment of discomfort into entertainment. Kendra noticed the tension in his shoulders. You okay, baby? He squeezed her hand. Yeah, it is. Behind him, murals of lost faces lined the walls, painted by local artists, candles flickering below. Among them, new ones were being added every day. The fight wasn't over. But this time it felt like maybe, just maybe, people were starting to listen. And somewhere, watching from afar, Kelly Monroe knew that doing the right thing hadn't fixed everything, but it had finally broken her silence. In a world built on fear and division, that was the first step toward something bigger: accountability, humanity, and maybe hope. The night Atlanta caught fire again, the sky glowed orange. Smoke rose above the skyline like a warning flare, and chants shook the ground beneath the courthouse steps. What had started as peaceful protest had spiraled into rage, raw, righteous, and unstoppable. Marcus stood in the crowd, the air thick with tear gas and fury. His phone buzzed nonstop, messages from Kendra begging him to come home. But he couldn't leave. Not tonight. The leaked footage from Kelly's flash drive had finally gone national. The video showed the young black teen, hands up, voice trembling. Please, sir, I'm not doing anything. Then, the shot. The sound echoed through every screen in America. The media called it shocking. The community called it the truth we've been screaming for years. Now, the city was burning with that truth. Police in riot gear lined the streets, shields glinting under streetlights. Helicopters thundered overhead. Protesters carried signs that read, "Hands up, don't shoot, and say his name." Marcus moved through the crowd, recording on his phone. He wasn't trying to go viral again. He just wanted to bear witness. But deep down, part of him knew this was history repeating itself. He found himself face to face with a line of officers, the same blue wall that had followed him all his life. They barked orders through megaphones, "Disperse immediately." No one moved. A young man next to Marcus, maybe 20, shouted, "We ain't moving till y'all listen." His voice cracked but carried power. The crowd roared in agreement. And that's when the first flashbang exploded. Chaos, smoke, screams, people running, bottles breaking, sirens wailing. Marcus ducked behind a parked car as rubber bullets zipped past. His phone slipped from his hand and skidded across the pavement. Then he saw it, a small girl trapped between two cars, crying. She couldn't have been older than Layla. Without thinking, he ran. The smoke burned his eyes, but he kept moving. He reached the girl, scooped her up, and shielded her with his body as another flashbang detonated nearby. Hey, you okay?" he asked, voice trembling. She nodded through tears, clutching his jacket. That's when a voice yelled, "Drop the child." He turned. 2 officers, weapons drawn, lights glaring straight into his face. Marcus froze. He knew that tone. That command, "Don't make any sudden moves." He raised his hand slowly, still holding the child. "She's just a kid," he shouted. "She got lost in the crowd." The officers advanced, shouting over each other. "Put her down! On the ground, now!" "Man, y'all not listening." One of them fired. The rubber bullet hit Marcus square in the shoulder, sending him spinning to the pavement. The girl screamed. People nearby started recording, phones raised, voices crying out. He was helping her. "Why'd you shoot him?" Marcus gasped in pain, clutching his arm, dazed. The girl ran into the crowd as strangers pulled him to safety. Blood trickled down his arm. The bullet hadn't killed him, but the look in his eyes said everything. It could have. Hours later, he sat on the curb, arm bandaged, surrounded by volunteers and medics. Someone handed him water. Another gave him his phone back. It was cracked but still recording. The footage was raw, shaky, but powerful. The kind of video that couldn't be spun or edited away. By sunrise, it was everywhere. Hashtags trended. He was helping her. Marcus Johnson, Our Atlanta Truth. For the second time in his life, Marcus had gone viral, but this time not for something awkward or misunderstood. This time, the world saw what he'd been trying to say all along, that being black in America meant even doing the right thing could get you hurt. Meanwhile, in Savannah, Kelly Monroe watched the chaos unfold on her mom's old TV. When she saw Marcus hit the ground, she dropped her glass. "Oh my God," she whispered. Her mom looked over from the couch. "Is that the man from your story?" Kelly nodded, breath shaking. "Yeah, that's him." She stood, grabbed her keys, and headed for the door. "Where are you going, Kelly?" "Back to Atlanta." Her mom frowned. "They'll chew you up again, baby." Kelly hesitated, then let him choke. By the time she arrived, the city was a mix of chaos and courage. Protesters were rebuilding burned tents, handing out water, chanting again, stronger, louder. She found Marcus at a small medical tent, arm in a sling. Exhaustion written all over his face. He looked up, surprised. "You shouldn't be here." "Neither should you," she shot back. Then her tone softened. "I saw what they did to you." "I'm sorry," he smirked faintly. "You're late to the party, officer." She shook her head. "Not an officer anymore. I resigned." He stared at her for a long moment. "You serious?" "Yeah," she said. "Can't fix a system while standing inside it." They walked together through the wreckage of the protest. Burnt signs, broken glass, tear gas canisters scattered like litter. Around them the sun was rising, golden light cutting through the smoke. "Funny," Marcus said. "World burns down and somehow the sun still shows up." Kelly looked at him. "Maybe that's the point." A reporter approached them, mic ready. "Mr. Johnson, former Officer Monroe, can you both comment on what happened tonight?" Marcus glanced at her, then said calmly, "We both saw the same thing happen in 2 different uniforms. Maybe now the rest of the world will finally stop pretending they can't see it too." The crowd nearby started clapping. Cameras flashed. Kelly lowered her head, tears brimming. "He's right," she whispered. "We all saw it. No more hiding." That interview became the clip that defined the movement. Not the chaos, not the fire, but 2 people from opposite sides standing shoulder to shoulder, united by truth. For once, the narrative wasn't about division. It was about courage. Messy, painful, real courage. Later that night, Marcus sat with Kendra and Layla at home. His arm still throbbed, but he felt something lighter inside. Layla climbed into his lap, resting her head on his chest. "Daddy," she said softly. "Did it hurt?" He smiled weakly. "A little." "Why'd they shoot you?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "'Cause sometimes people see what they're scared of instead of who you really are." Layla frowned. "That's dumb," Marcus laughed quietly. "Yeah, baby. It is." Kendra placed her hand over his. "You did what you had to do." He looked out the window, the city still humming. Sirens in the distance, and whispered, "I just hope it means something." Outside, murals of Marcus and the lost teen were already being painted side by side on city walls. Strangers lit candles beneath them. And somewhere, Kelly watched from her car, tears streaking her face, knowing that her choice, to expose the truth, to walk away from silence, had cost her everything. But maybe given something greater to everyone else. That night, as Atlanta breathed in the smoke and sorrow, one thing became clear. The fight wasn't over, but the truth had finally found a voice, and it wasn't backing down. The streets of Atlanta slowly calmed, but the echoes of that night lingered like smoke in the lungs. Marcus sat on his porch with a cup of coffee, sunlight spilling over the city skyline, and let himself breathe for the first time in weeks. The viral videos, the protests, the chaos, and it was all behind him now. But the lessons were etched deep. He thought about the little girl he saved that night, about the teen who lost his life, about the countless faces whose stories would never make the news, and he understood something he'd always felt but never fully confronted. Living in fear of being black in America wasn't just personal. It was systemic. It was in every stop, every glance, every assumption the world made before hearing your story. Kelly Monroe had moved on, but not out of guilt, out of purpose. She volunteered with youth programs, helping teens navigate the world of authority and law enforcement. For the first time, she realized that being on the inside didn't mean silence. Sometimes it meant speaking up even when the cost was high. Marcus knew their paths had crossed for a reason. 2 lives shaped by the same flawed system, 1 man, 1 woman, forced to confront the uncomfortable truth that change rarely comes easy, and it rarely comes fast. Community groups started regular town halls. Schools brought in speakers to discuss bias and systemic injustice. Neighborhood murals became living reminders of the resilience of those lost and those fighting to honor them. People began to listen, to argue, to question themselves. And for the first time, Marcus felt a ripple of hope that real change might be possible. He taught Layla a simple lesson. You gotta look people in the eye, baby. Listen, really listen, and don't let anyone make you feel invisible. Not ever. Kendra smiled, holding her daughter's hand, watching Marcus's eyes glisten with a mix of sorrow and determination. But even as hope took root, Marcus knew the fight wasn't over. He'd felt the sting of injustice firsthand. He'd seen the casual cruelty baked into systems designed to protect some while endangering others. And he knew there would be more nights of fear, more moments when doing the right thing could cost you everything. Yet he also knew something more important: the power of voice, the weight of witnessing, and the courage it took to act despite fear.